moderator, so I'll kind of go back and forth and direct. Oh, wait, I can't hear anybody.
Yes, you're good. Go.
Okay. Hello and good morning. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Krista with the Graham Chamber of Commerce, and today we have a panel of guests here with us. We have Glenn McGee with Ciera Bank, Barry Gober with First State Bank, and Mark Denny with InterBank, and we are going to be talking a little bit about the financial relief for small businesses and kind of some of those options, et cetera. And I want to start off by saying a thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today. We appreciate it. And also that right now this is obviously unprecedented and changing rapidly, and we don't have all of the information yet. But this group in particular is staying on top of the information, and we'll be sending that out and releasing that as it becomes available. So I say that because, of course, every expert, and these are experts, really want to have all of the information to share with everyone. But since this is so new and evolving rapidly, not all of the information is actually available yet. So we're going to do our best to answer questions. Please post them in the comments so that we can see them, and we will ask the questions at the end of this session. And if we don't know the answer to a question, we will get back with you when we do know. And that's something important that I want to note before we get started. So I'm actually going to start with Glenn McGee with Ciera Bank. Thank you again for joining us. Can you just kind of give us a brief rundown on some of the SBA options that have been put out and the difference between the loan versus the grant?
Okay. The biggest program that Ciera Bank is going to participate in is the Payroll Protection Program. And that is going to be a loan initially that will be based on 2.5 times your average 2019 payroll numbers. And that will be a loan that will be issued by the bank, guaranteed by the SBA, and becomes forgivable by the government when you provide documentation that shows that you're continuing to keep that payroll number up. The forgiveness factor can be, in addition to the payroll numbers, as we understand it now, things such as utilities, lease payments, rent payments, things like that can be a portion of the forgiveness phase of the loan. The way we understand it right now, that loan will be at a 0.5%, 0.5% loan rate. There are no fees to the borrower. There are no verification. Well, there are verification documents. There are no ability to repay requirements to prove up. So it is something that should be fairly easy to qualify for. Any individual that has a payroll, any business that has a payroll theoretically would be eligible for the program. We're still in the process of learning what documentation is going to be required, and we're trying to nail that down today. It is our understanding that applications can start being taken tomorrow. That the application is out there on a website, and I don't have that information with me, and I apologize about that.
That's okay. We're going to share that, Glenn.
Okay. What we are doing at this point is taking a list of names, emails, and phone numbers to get back with. We're going to mail out a packet to customers that have contacted us with the application, some of the things that we're aware that they will need to provide us with to qualify for the loan. We hope to have that out as soon as possible, maybe late this afternoon or tomorrow. As soon as we get the information, we'll forward that and to the people that have contacted us for the list that we've developed for that.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, and next, Mr. Gober, can you go through some of the eligibility requirements for this loan and or grant?
Okay, the loans are available to all businesses, including nonprofits, veteran organizations, tribal business concerns, sole proprietorships, self-employed individuals, and independent contractors with 500 or fewer employees. Businesses in certain industries can have more than 500 employees if they meet the applicable SBA employee-based size standards, which is listed on the SBA website. So basically it's open to any business, is my understanding, that has employees. And if I could, with what Glenn said, talking about the payroll protection program, there's also some other programs that are out there that people might want to know about. And one of those is what they call the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. And that's available right on the SBA website. And it allows for a loan directly through the SBA or to apply for a $10,000 grant. And I would encourage anybody out there to apply for that grant as well, in addition to the payroll protection loans.
And so, Mr. Gober, does the grant through that economic disaster fund, does that work the same way as far as it needing to go towards the payroll, rent, utilities, et cetera?
No, you can use it for you can use it for anything that you need. That's
okay.
What I understand is kind of immediate relief, and it's available directly through the SBA. You don't need to go through any of us.
Okay, gotcha. Also, I know that one of the things, I can't remember if it was you or one of our other local bankers, but somebody made mention, and I thought it was a really good point, that this money is available federally. And so I think probably most of us would agree that we want any and all small businesses who have been affected, which is probably literally every small business here, to apply for this money. We don't want people to say, oh, well, somebody else may need that more, so on and so forth. I think we want to encourage people to apply. Would you agree with that, Barry?
Yeah, one of the things, and we talked about this last night, you know, our businesses are going to need help. And this is one of the few programs, especially government programs, that I've ever seen that seems like a win-win to everybody involved. And it will definitely help local businesses. And, you know, it's one of the things that they say there's no such thing as a free lunch, but this is getting pretty close.
Perfect. I think that's a good way to sum it up. And, you know, when we know that the money is out there and it's going to go to a community to help a business, we want it, as much of it as possible, to come and help our businesses here. Selfish as it may seem, we want to take care of Graham, of course.
Yeah. And, you know, I think it's important to point out too, that as bankers, that we want to help our customers, and it's in our best interest to help our borrowers get this money. And I'm sure the others would agree too. You know, this is just a thing that we're doing that is really beneficial to our community.
Excellent. All right, Mr. Denny, can you go through how, or if I should say, our community banks here locally are able to assist with this? And I know we covered that a little bit in talking with Glenn and Barry, but I know there are some challenges for community banks in administering these loans, or at least for some. So can you kind of talk through that a little bit?
Sure. First of all, I want to reiterate what Barry and Glenn have both talked about. This is something that it's, you know, it's not really going to be a big boon for our banks, our local banks. We're in this to try to help our folks, and I think that's pretty important. So, I'm sorry, what was your original question? I got off on a different deal.
Oh, no worries. I was just asking. I know there were some restrictions on which banks could administer some of these loans. Yeah. So just kind of asking about that.
Sure. Yeah. So if you have made SBA loans in the past and you're set up as an SBA lender, you're able to put more people on that, give them the capability to submit these loans, these applications, and they're going to be able to submit them beginning tomorrow. I'm a little concerned that I hope the SBA website doesn't crash. The key thing to any of us, and I know that our partners, Graham Savings, are not involved, but they haven't done a lot of SBA lending in the past, if any, and so they're in the process now of trying to become set up, but it's evidently been a crush on the SBA, so I'm not sure that they've gotten back to that. I've been in touch with Chris Plant to try to help a little bit, but I'm not that much help. So each one of our lenders that we have set up on the website, been approved by the SBA, so we're able to submit those, and we'll intend to be doing that. We're getting calls from our customers, our current customers, and also people that we really haven't had before, and so that's good. We're trying to get everybody help that we can, and like Glenn said, everything is changing. One of my customers and I were talking. I said we're learning something new every 30 minutes. It seems like on this deal. So I would just ask that everybody be patient and let us help you, but be patient with us, and we're going to do everything we can. A lot of it is new to us, so it's but it is the most streamlined deal that we've come down through so far. But we've also found out that we still have to do our regulatory requirements on the beneficial owners of each company, and all the documentation that's involved with that. So, there's a lot to do. But we're all learning at the same time. So, thankfully we have Ciera Bank and First State and Graham Savings is trying to. We're all trying to get in this and help our community. That's the biggest thing for all of us, I think.
Absolutely. And I think this is another example, of our community coming together and working together. Our bankers are sharing information with each other, because we know that we're suffering two crises essentially right now. One of those is related to healthcare, of course, with the pandemic, but the other is going to be our economic situation. And yesterday when we talked to Graham Healthcare and Urgent Care, they made a pretty strong statement about how this is not going away anytime soon. This is going to be here for a while. We're going to be dealing with this for a while. And I would say the same probably is true for our economic situation. This isn't going to be fixed overnight, but with everybody working together, our finance community, working with our business community, working with our legislators, I think we can at least hopefully get some relief to people and help people maintain their business throughout this crazy and challenging situation.
Chris, I might also add that for people to be careful about, we've already heard a few stories about someone getting a phone call asking them to go ahead and send $500 or whatever so they could get the process started through SBA. They need to understand that there is no cost to anybody for these SBA loans. There's no application fee. There's nothing like that. Nobody's going to call you. Now, I say that. I've called some of my customers to let them know about this program and make them aware of it just because I think it'll help them. But if somebody calls you, you don't know, make sure you don't give out any account information or social security numbers or credit card numbers or any of those things, because this is a no cost deal to our borrowers. So
great information. Excellent. Also, Barry, I wanted to come back to you for just a minute and talk about some of the stuff that we talked about briefly yesterday was on when businesses are applying, they can work with an agent.
Right. The way the law is written, that or the loan is written, there are certain people that are allowed to act as agents. Some people are using attorneys. Some people are using accountants, and then there are other various people that package SBA loans, not in this area, but in Wichita Falls, they have the Small Business Development Center, and in the Metroplex, there are some people that put together. I would say most people will probably go through their community bank, but there are some that are using accountants and agents. And like they say, what Mark said, reiterate, there's no cost to the borrowers.
Right. And I think we are going to have a call on, we'll put this out, of course, publicly on Facebook as well, but call on Monday with some of our chamber member accountants as well. Just share some additional information about how you can work with an agent if that's something that that some of our members need to know about. So we'll also have that call coming up, and maybe get to some additional questions at that point as well, because of course, like you said, information is coming out every single day. So we are all learning together right now. Excuse me, but we appreciate you all staying on top of it for us and sharing that with us. Okay, and then I want to go back to Mr. McGee for just a minute. And I know that you had mentioned that you all will be sending out a packet of information to your businesses or your customers. And so will that be done in the mail, or how are you going to be sending that, email, or what type of delivery?
Some of those things are not just exactly yet, Chris. Probably the most likely scenario right now is to email those to the customer's email address that we will get obtained from them when we call them back. So that's the easiest, quickest way, and especially with everybody kind of locked down with the shelter in place situation, that's going to be the most likely scenario for that as well. I did want to point out that to receive the forgiveness, these are not grants to begin with. To receive the forgiveness from the government, you will have to provide the lender with documentation that basically proves that you have maintained the level of payroll, your payroll amounts the same to get a full forgiveness. There will be partial forgivenesses. There will be full forgivenesses as we understand it, and we're all learning as we go. But it's not something that you will be able to get the loan and forget about it. You will have to provide your lender with documentation at the end of the 8-week period, I think it is, to prove that you have maintained those payroll figures. And I think that's really important to point out to people. Like I said, there are things in addition to payroll that can be added to that forgiveness of figure to help you get to a full forgiveness. But some of those additional fees may be limited by the amount of loans that are presented to the SBA. But as far as how we're going to contact customers, more than likely that will be via email. We'll contact them by phone and just kind of confirm some things, and then do as much as possible via email. We're looking into the possibility of some DocuSign on the loan and things like that. But we will certainly need some original signatures as well.
Well, and I think, Glenn, you brought up a really good point that we've already had several questions about over the phone and things like that leading up to this call. And that is related to that requirement or criteria, rather, that people have to maintain the same number of employees. And I think there's still, like with anything that's coming out right now, there's still a lot of questions lingering that we don't always have answers to. But I wanted to let everybody know, we also, so after we have our call with the accountants on Monday, we're going to have one with attorneys on Tuesday, and hopefully we can get some of those questions answered as well, because I know that one of the questions I got, which I thought was just a great question, was about having to have the same total payroll cost, but does that mean it's the exact same employees, or does it mean that you can still let an employee go if it's performance-based and replace that position, so on and so forth? I think those are really great questions that maybe the answers don't exist yet, but we're going to try to find out and get that information out to the public.
I think that's still determined. One other thing that I think that's important to add to this is the borrowers are going to have to certify that they have been affected by all the coronavirus things. They are going to have to certify that if they, I can't imagine who that might be, but if they theoretically have not been affected by the coronavirus and seen a downturn in their income, then they theoretically would not be eligible for the PPP program.
So I think mainly in Graham, that means that probably Walmart and United would not be eligible. I know that people are definitely still patronizing those two specific stores. But I think that is a really good point. And how I'm going to switch back over.
We lost her.
Krista, we lost your sound.
We can't hear you. Oh, wait.
Better.
There you go.
There we go. So I'm going to switch back over to Mr. Denny for a minute and ask about how does a business go about proving or showing that they did have, a financial downturn, so to speak. I mean, what is the best way to do that? A financial statement or a bank statement, or how do they even prove that this did affect them?
Well, I think that's all going to be up to our files, our lender files. So, we've got to have a statement in there. And, I would say it can be, that I couldn't get crews out to do, whatever I needed to have done, to whether it's to build pods like our Excalibur friends are doing, or any of those things. So there's going to be obviously the restaurants and the things like that, the retail, those people aren't able to sell dresses out of their shops and things like that. So obviously it's going to be pretty easy to do that. Glenn mentioned that on the application, you have to attest that everything is true and all of these conditions are met. And when you attest to that, it's punishable as a criminal offense. So you can't, and obviously when we go back to the forgiveness of some of the debt, if we have to be able to prove that this is what it went for, that you didn't go out and buy merchandise or equipment or things like that it actually went and you were up to the payroll expenses and the utilities and rent, et cetera, et cetera. So, those are all things that we're just going to have to prove up as lenders. And, we're going to be working pretty hard over the next several months with all of this. And there historically, SBA will cause us to have changes in the middle of the program, things like that. But, thank God they're here, they're coming, Cowboys are on the way. We just got to help facilitate everything that is going to come down the pike for us. So that's what we're trying to do. And, thankfully everybody's on board, and everybody that's not here today is trying to get on board, and we appreciate those guys because I know they work hard and they're a big asset to the community as well. So.
Absolutely. And so would you say, Mr. Denny, that the people who aren't sure how to put those statements together or aren't sure how to show their lender that they use that money appropriately, is the best person for them to work with on that going to be their lender or an accountant or an agent, I guess? What would be your recommendation?
Well, certainly their accountants can gather things like, they may have bookkeepers that do the payroll, but someone is going to have the payroll information that they've provided. It's not just W-2 statements, but you know, they actually need a summary and the figures for what their payroll expenses were, and that includes, you know, retirement benefits and insurance and payroll taxes and all those things that we can stick in there. And then when we get that figure, we add or we multiply it by 2.5 times and are able to come up with a number. But I would say that their bookkeepers and their accountants, whoever does their payroll, you know, you will need, and it may even be someone that does their own payroll. It may be, you know, Intuit payroll or whatever. So, but those records should be available. And like Glenn said, for 2019, and we'll take the average of those and go from there. So, yeah, anybody that can, and I will say this, the folks that I've talked to that, you know, the accountants and the attorneys and everybody else, they're just like we are. We want to help our folks, and imagine with all the calls that we've had already within our community. Now take a community the size of Dallas and think of all of those that are going to be happening. So again, patience, and we need to be patient with SBA. It's easy to get frustrated at a government entity, but we need to be patient as well. So I think we're all going to come out of this a little more patient with our neighbors. So anyway, that's
Absolutely.
I would say employ whoever you need to be able to gather this information, and we can help gather that information. Help you figure out how to gather that information.
Excellent advice. I think that we do have a few questions. Glenn, did Lisa give you some questions that we've had so far?
She handed me 2. First one was, how many SBA loans do you normally handle per month? We have not handled SBA loans previously, and just kind of geared up for this particular program. We were in the process of doing that prior to this epidemic, so our timing was good there. But as far as numbers of loans that we've handled per month previously, that would be 0 to very few. The next question I received was if we apply for
And hey, Glenn, sorry to interrupt you, but I want to let I also want to let Barry and Mark answer as well, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, just yeah, that way they get a chance to say, you know, if they've had any experience with this. But Barry, you want to go next about how many SBA loans your bank has done previously?
We haven't done SBA loans in a while. I used to do quite a few of them, but I am a 7A certified lender, so we're lucky that we didn't have to go through the process to get that certification in order to participate in this program. So we're trying to get everything online and ready to go tomorrow.
Excellent. And Mark, what about InterBank?
Well, InterBank, we've got enough folks that are SBA experts, and thankfully we have some of those that are guiding us through this process. So while we haven't done a lot of SBA loans, and I can't even think of the last one that we did locally in Graham, we were able to be set up quickly because we already had the SBA identification number and things like that. So individually, we were able to set ourselves up over the last couple of days, and Aaron Gayton and Harold are both set up as well as me. So, you know, we're hoping that SBA expertise that we have within our company it's been very beneficial. So while we haven't done it locally, we do have experts within our system, and that's an advantage. So.
Excellent. All right. Glenn, do you want to go ahead and give us the next question?
Okay. If we apply for the EIDL, which is the one that Barry had mentioned, in addition to the payroll protection program that I think they refer to it as EIDL, and don't accept the loan, but receive the EIDL grant for up to $10,000, is that subtracted from the PPP loan? My understanding is that at this point, and it's a learning process, but is you you can't do both currently. That may or may not be accurate. We're trying to get that nailed down, but I think if you do have an idle loan, those funds might come out of your ability to borrow under the payroll protection program. I would defer to Barry and Mark if they know more on that.
Yeah, my understanding is that if you're involved with one, that you're not eligible for the other. But I'm not sure about the $10,000 grant that we talked about. I just don't have enough information on that yet. So, but again, that's applied directly through the SBA. So,
I've got some. Can you hear me? I've got some information here that says the maximum amount of a PPP loan is the sum of 2.5 times your monthly payroll incurred over a 1-year period, plus an outstanding SBA EDL loan not to exceed, the maximum loan amount can't exceed $10 million. So the way I've read it, that you can do both and have it all rolled into one.
I think that's something we need to get answered, because that's not the information that I have. But again, we're learning something new every 30 minutes. But so, and that would be the information that I received a day or two ago. So that's probably, so I appreciate that, Barry. We'll need to check on that.
Yeah, that came from a bulletin that the Texas Bankers Association had put out about 2 days ago. And Mark's right. We're all relying on trade industry people, and everybody is sending us different things every day. And some of the stuff does contradict each other. So it's kind of hard to know exactly what is going on at this point.
Well, I will certainly say from a citizen perspective, we're very appreciative to our bankers for being the ones to decipher all of that, because I'm glad I don't have to be the one to read through all of that and figure out which one's correct and which document, you trust and all of that. So thank you again. Yeah. Thanks to all of you.
One thing I would add, I don't know that it's been mentioned, but on these PPP loans, that in order to qualify for the 100% forgiveness, 75% of the amount of the loan needs to be used for payroll purposes. And you can use 25% to pay rent or mortgage interest or utilities. But in order for it to be 100% forgivable, the 75% of it needs to be used for payroll.
Good point. I also saw a question asking about how these loans will affect credit scores. Does anybody have any information or want to share any advice on that?
On our system, that most of these loans, since they're a small business, will be done as commercial loans, and we don't report commercial loans to the credit bureau. Credit bureau is primarily done for consumer purposes. So from our standpoint, it wouldn't have any effect on credit ratings.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's going to be true across the board. Commercial loans aren't reported by anybody on that's all consumer credit.
Excellent. And then another one, Glenn, this might be on the same list that you have as well, but another one that I saw was, how important is it right now to go ahead and check in, if you're a small business, check in with your financial advisor or your banker, just to gauge your financial health and talk to them about maybe some options and what you can and should do.
I think it definitely would recommend contacting your banker and getting on a list at this point at a minimum. We're all three of us are gearing up to be ready to go as soon as possible. Hopefully that's tomorrow. So the sooner we are contacted by customers of their interest in the program, the better and quicker we'll be able to serve them.
Anyone else?
Actually, yeah, I was just going to say, we've actually, I have a customer that he said, I'll be the guinea pig. So we're going to submit that one hopefully early tomorrow, and hopefully we can identify, whatever pitfalls there might be, things that we didn't see. And one of the things too that I want to be sure that everybody understands is we're still required to follow the regulations that we've always been required for any commercial loan, and that is, the corporate documentation, and so everybody needs to make sure that they have all that, that we're going to be able to get a copy of it. Glenn talked about sending things by email, and that's what we're doing. And I've already sent some out to kind of get the process started. I would agree with Glenn that you contact your banker. If you don't really have a banker right now, contact any one of us. If you have an accountant, do that. There's a lot of sole proprietors and things like that have just been doing it on their own, which is commendable. But we need all those records. We can't just, Glenn and Barry and all of our lenders and I don't have time to compile that information for you. We need to be able to see it readily so that we can make those determinations of what needs to be sent and what we need to keep in our file, and how to determine that 2.5 times the payroll expenses. So again, I just ask for patience when we call you and say, we don't have, we still need this or we still need that. Get it for us, and let's make this deal work. We're going to get through this. I think we all believe that. And but we're trying to help, and we hope everybody tries to help us and be patient and have patience.
Absolutely. What about, can you all speak to those who maybe were looking at getting a small business loan? Some of your current customers, maybe, would you advise them to go this route versus just a small business loan through your bank right now?
I would say they're two different things. There are various reasons people would get a small business loan. What this act is primarily designed for is to allow employers to keep their employees to where they're not unemployed. So, I would suggest for anybody that has employees that they want to keep, and hopefully we come out this thing on the other end, where everybody's business is getting back to normal. But this program and this money is designed for these employers to be able to pay their employees through this slow time. So I would suggest that everybody that has employees pursue the PPP option. And, if they need additional help on top of that, that's something to consider. But this act was designed specifically for people to keep their employees.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And
anybody else?
I think too, Krista, that SBA's idea of streamlined and mine are two different, we have two different definitions of that. But I know that in a typical 7A small business loan, there are a lot of deals and items that you need to have prepared, et cetera. And this is more of a streamlined process. We're basically talking about an application and an attestament down at the bottom of that all these things are true and right. And so this is going to be more streamlined process. So I would take advantage of the program. Plus, some of it could be forgiven after 6 months. So I would say take advantage of this one right now.
I think it's amazing that if you think about it, this program was approved last Friday. We're 6 days into it, and a government program has gotten this far in 6 days is truly remarkable. We're not there yet. It'll happen, I believe it, when the first loan's made. But as far as the fact that they've gotten this far this quickly is rather remarkable.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing we need to keep reminding ourselves and other people too, is that this is just happening very, very fast. And we need to remember to be impressed with the speed that our finance community overall, or a government organization, but also our banks are working to make sure that we get this relief out to the local businesses. Glenn, do you have any other questions on your list?
Those are them that Lisa gave me.
Lisa, have we had any more questions come in since that list?
The ones that I sent you.
Okay, I think I covered. I'm going to make sure I covered everything. If there's anything that we did not cover, we will definitely follow back up when we can, and as we are able, and post that information in response. We'll continue to put out information about these loan and grant options and any other relief options. I know I'm just going to reiterate it one more time and say that this is changing daily. And so this is something we'll continue to do and continue to put out, continue to keep everyone updated. But again, I think from our whole community, I just want to say thank you so much to the banks for being on top of it, for participating in this call, being willing to share information, and definitely for being willing to share information when you don't have all of the information yet. That puts a lot of pressure on you all, and much appreciated from us. So thank you again for your time, and let us know if there's any way that we can be supportive of you.
Thank you, Chris. I think this has been good, so
Excellent.
we appreciate it.
Well, thank you all, and have a good day. Stay close, but not too close to other people, okay?
Thanks.
All
Thanks.
right. Bye.